work hard. He work hard.
I worked hard. I'd get up at 4 o'clock and get my breakfast done. Just at dawn of day, I go to the field and we pick cotton.
Mr. and Mrs. Haywood Jenkins of Sharkey County, Mississippi have, between them, picked cotton for over a century.
Let's talk about this. Is this a history we should celebrate?
The Arkansas National Guard ringed the school with orders to admit only the white students. It shocked the country. State troops were now being used to prevent enforcement of federal law. At the center of the crisis were these 9 teenagers, selected by the school board because of their excellent grades. The 9th student, Elizabeth Eckford, had missed the call to gather with the others before school. Elizabeth Eckford walked alone and met a mob.
This girl here was the first Negro apparently of high school age to show up at Central High School the day that the federal court ordered it integrated.
Is it one that should be honored?
When the children took to the streets, the local head of the police, Bull Connor, used high-pressure fire hoses and dogs to attack the children, many of whom were arrested. Images of the police violence was broadcast around the world. One photograph captured the moment when a white police officer allowed a large German Shepherd dog to attack a young black boy. The Children's Crusade began at the 16th Street Baptist Church. 4 months after the protests began, the Ku Klux Klan bombed the church, killing 4 little girls: Addie Mae Collins, Carol Robertson, Cynthia Wesley, and Denise McNair.
How would you feel if this legacy were recognized?
America has a long, painful history of racism and segregation. Until the 60s, African Americans were made to live separately from white people and didn't have the right to vote. Nowadays, policing in America varies from state to state. In North Carolina, it takes just 16 weeks to become a police officer, half the time it takes to become a licensed barber in the state.
Well, in Texas, there is a story of politics, racism, segregation, and sports.
Mark Twain once observed, "Get your facts first, and then you can distort them as much as you please." That reminder is fitting today because this statue represents all Texas Rangers, not any single individual. Today, more than 189 women and men serve as Texas Rangers across Texas' 254 counties. The modern Texas Ranger reflects the diversity, integrity, and professionalism expected of one of the nation's oldest and most respected law enforcement organizations. May this statue stand not only as a tribute to those who have served, but also a reminder of our shared responsibility to learn from the past and build a more just future together.
The statue, seen here, reads, Texas Ranger of 1960. One riot, one ranger. Should we accept this as the norm? No.
Homaged after, but the statue was modeled after Jay Banks, and that's where a lot of the controversy, if not all of the controversy, comes from. Now, if you don't know who Jay Banks is, he was a Texas Rangers captain, not the baseball team in the 1950s, because they were not here and they did not exist yet in baseball form in the 1950s. But he was a Texas Rangers law enforcement captain in the 1950s. He was present in 1956 when Governor Allen Shivers sent the Texas Rangers to Mansfield High School and Texarkana Junior College to prevent black students from enrolling.
Bryce from Locked On Rangers is correct. Texas Governor Allen Shivers was pro-segregation. He twice sent in the Texas Rangers to make sure the schools stayed segregated. He would campaign on segregation, and even after more than 100 school districts had integrated, he continued to fight it, striking a tone that's all too familiar today. He blamed it on paid agitators, wrote Fangraphs' Davy Andrews. Thus, we turn to Mansfield High School.
In 1956, a small town in Texas openly defied the United States Constitution and got away with it. 2 years earlier, the Supreme Court had ruled that school segregation was unconstitutional. Mansfield Independent School District was ordered to desegregate its high school. The law was clear. Black students had the right to attend. But when the school year began, a white mob gathered outside Mansfield High School armed with bats, clubs, and farm tools. Effigies were burned. Confederate flags waved. The goal was simple: stop integration at any cost. Instead of protecting the students, Texas Governor Allen Shivers sent the Texas Rangers to block them from entering. State power was used not to enforce the law, but to resist it. No black student entered Mansfield High School that year. In fact, the school remained segregated until 1965. The Mansfield school incident wasn't just local defiance. It became a blueprint for massive resistance across the South, proving that without enforcement, civil rights rulings meant nothing. And that's why Mansfield still matters today.
You heard correctly. Shivers sent the Rangers to help maintain order, instructing the unit to transfer any students whose attendance would be reasonably calculated to incite violence. One of the Rangers, former Texas Ranger, Captain E.J. Banks, a.k.a. Jay, would be seen speaking with students outside of Mansfield. East Texas history would write this: the Rangers would not be responsible for helping or escorting the African American students who were attempting to enroll. Here, pictured, a ranger is seen conversing with white students in front of the school, while an effigy of an African American can be seen hanging above the school entrance in the background. Signs hanging would say, well, this would be a terrible way to die, and this N-word tried to enter a white school. There was an unsuccessful attempt to remove it, and it remained there until at least September 4th. Willie Pigg, the high school principal, refused to remove it. The Rangers would also be called to Texarkana College in 1956 to keep the peace, as 2 black students attempted to integrate the junior college. As in Mansfield, Banks supported the white segregationist mob. The White Citizens Council appreciated the Rangers' work. Who exactly were they? Let me tell you. When Brown v. Board came about, black folks approved of the ruling. Whites in the Deep South called the day Black Monday. Some white Southerners channeled their ire into a new movement called Citizens' Councils, organizations of white segregationists and supremacists who oppose integration and the Supreme Court decision. Meanwhile, Banks's profile continued to rise as he became, for a while, the face of uniform, armed, and officially sanctioned white resistance to a court-ordered civil rights. Russell Molina, pictured, denies the statue is of Banks. He would speak with Fangraphs, and when the outlet informed him that the Texas Ranger Hall of Fame and Museum lists Banks as the model for the statue, he conceded that Banks was one model of many models, but it's not a model of him. That is not about a singular individual. They conclude this contention feels disingenuous, and here is why. The sculptor, whose name is Waldine Amanda Tauk, would even say in an interview, he is exactly my idea of what a ranger ought to look like. And here's another important fact of all of this. When his obituary came about in the Washington Post, it would read J. Banks, 75, a retired Texas Ranger captain who was the model for the statue bearing the slogan, "One Riot, One Ranger," dedicated at Dallas's Love Field in 1960, died of arthritis at his home in Garland, Texas. Another read that he was the model for the statue that stood at Dallas's Love Field Airport. Thus, we now jump to 2020. The George Floyd protests come about, and the statue was removed. Then, out of nowhere, the Texas Rangers baseball team decided, you know what, let's bring it back. Local writer Bud Kennedy would put in his piece, the Rangers installed the statue quietly. I mean, really quietly. Mike Paolucci, the editor at D Magazine, wouldn't be able to stay on the sights of it. He typed, the organization concealed what it was unveiling because it knew what the reaction would be, and it wanted to sidestep anything that might alter the plan. And when hurt feelings and dredged up pain are treated as inconveniences, it provides ample cause for black and brown people to feel that the Rangers are not for them. He continues here, just as some LGBTQ plus fans and employees feel that the only MLB team without a pride night, that is true, is not for them, just as some women aspiring to work for one of 2 MLB teams without paid maternity leave, that is also true, may well feel that the Rangers are not for them, just as employees concerned for their safety during the pandemic, also true, were told that the Rangers are not for them. Thus, Congressman Mark Vesey, who represents Arlington, they are in his district. Well, he would send a letter to Major League Baseball Commissioner Rob Manfred, Texas Rangers co-chairman Ray Davis, and Bob Simpson, raising serious concerns about the reported installation of a statue honoring a segregationist law enforcement officer associated with efforts to block the integration of Mansfield High in '65 following Brown v. Board. Congressman Vesey stated that honoring a statue tied to resisting school integration contradicts the inclusive values baseball represents and undermines the legacy of pioneering leaders such as Jackie Robinson and Larry Doby, who helped make baseball a sport that belonged to everyone, regardless of skin color. Here is my question to the Texas Rangers. Why exactly would you bring this back? Why exactly would you do it so quietly? Honor him, and you know what? Own it. Because what you are saying right now is we like the past of the Texas Rangers. We like what it represents. And we like that we have the availability and we can afford to bring it back because of the current state of our politics in the United States of America. In a way, what Donald Trump has done is manufacture consent, along with many other Republicans, manufacture consent to bring back this sort of carrying out of colonialism. The Texas Rangers weren't just about being segregationist. They have a deep and troubling history, including with Native Americans and their fight against Mexicans long ago. And I wouldn't even say that it is long ago. I retract that. It is continuing into present day. What this represents is some of the worst parts of our history. But for the Texas Rangers baseball team, business as usual.